All right, welcome everyone. We're going to give people just a few more minutes to sign on. The people who registered was a little bit lower than I expected, but maybe that's because this time wasn't ideal for everybody, but we are recording it and it will be made available through Learn. So I'll get started in a minute or two. I'm going to give them one more minute. Someone else is joining. Good. And All right, I'll go ahead and get started. The attendance for this webinar wasn't as much as I was hoping, but this is being recorded and then it'll be made available through Learn. I know finals are up and coming, so maybe people had class or couldn't attend for that reason. So first one, I want to thank your interest in this Learn student research workshop that we're going to host at Stone Lab. I hadn't thought of a more clever name for it, so we're just calling it what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And if you haven't met me, my name is Justin Chaffin. I'm the research coordinator at Stone Laboratory, and we are located on South Bass and Put-in-Bay, South Bass and Gibraltar Island. It's also the town of Put-in-Bay. So the idea of this workshop came about from the group of aquatic primary productivity, which is called the GAP. And this GAP network is a global network of researchers that focus on primary productivity. And they're associated with the Society of Limnology. And every couple years, the GAP group meets for a 2-week research event. During this 2-week research event, this starts off with 2 days of presentations as if it was a normal conference. And then they do 10 days of research, normally at a field station. And then the last 2 days of the workshop are 2 days of presentations based on the data that they gathered during those 10 days. So it's not necessarily a conference. It's more of a, let's all meet for workshops, let's do a bunch of research, and then give brief presentations on what we did. And in each GAP meeting or conference, workshop, whatever we want to call it, normally results in several publications. The last GAP was hosted in the Czech Republic. So where does this come out to Stone Lab? Stone Lab was going to host GAP in 2020. However, we canceled it. We canceled again in 2021 due to COVID. Then ultimately, we just had to keep on canceling it due to uncertainty and international travels and COVID, and then inflation hit. So it wasn't feasible for Stone Lab to host GAP. And I believe there still hasn't been a GAP since the Czech Republic one. Instead of hosting a GAP at Stone Lab, we came up with the idea to host a GAP-like workshop at Stone Lab, specifically aimed at learn grad students. So the GAP has several working groups with leaders. So going into the GAP meeting, you kind of know what you'll be doing. So the 2017 GAP at the Czech Republic. Let's see if I can get a laser pointer here. Pointer laser. So there was 4 working groups. There was one group looking at the interactions of algae and bacteria, looking at productivity in highly productive systems, photosynthesis and with lab cultures, and trophic interactions. And then at the Stone Lab GAP, what we proposed to do was planktonic HABs, Lake Erie microcystis blooms. Back then, we also had Sandusky Bay Planktothrix blooms. We're going to have a group on benthic HABs. We were going to have a sinkhole group, which would have been in Sandusky Bay. We're not proposing this one anymore. And then a group looking at fluorescence methods. And our website is still active. BGSU was going to host it, so you can still go to gap.bgsu and find our website. So that's still open. So what we are proposing, so now that you got the background of how this Learn workshop came about, what are we going to do at Stone Lab? So the Stone Lab Learn workshop is going to follow similar format as the GAP, although in a shortened duration. The grad students, we're suggesting the grad students work in small groups with a group leader. Like each group will be a working group. And then these are just some ideas that I had. One group could do a transect across the Western Basin, grabbing water samples for various analyses, whatever your whatever you're looking for. You can do incubations with the water back at the lab. We propose to do have a working group doing something in our mesocosm. Here's an image of our mesocosm. I'll talk a little bit more about the facilities we have. Then also open to suggestions from Learn. What can you accomplish with 1 week at Stone Lab? Nutrients, zooplankton, carbon, whatever your specialty is and what you're interested in and what we can solve at Stone Lab. And again, it doesn't have to be limited to algae. And like the GAP, you can bring your relatively small lab equipment or field gear to Stone Lab. So if you have a favorite barometer or a spectrophotometer in your lab and you want to bring it to Stone Lab for that week, you can do that too. Some benefits of this workshop would be to spread the research cost out. There's fees associated with going on the boat and using our mesocosm, but if we work together in a group, we can spread those fees out so it's less costly per person. There's a lot of evidence showing that these types of workshops, especially with grad students, help network and it helps them create connections that last for their entire career. So if you're learning new people that you may not have never met, you might develop new potential collaborations down the road. We can leverage each other's expertise, potential papers that could come out of this, even though it's a 1 week workshop or 1 or 2 day transects. Paper has been published in Lake Erie using 1 day transects across the Western Basin already. So we can get papers out, and we can also offer some sort of certification saying that you attended. So just some information about Stone Lab. Um, we are located on South Bass Island here, which is in the western basin of Lake Erie. If anyone's gone to Put-in-Bay for activities at Put-in-Bay, the town is right here. Gibraltar Island is also part of Stone Lab, and that's here. The Miller Ferry docks here. Stone Lab is in this corner of the island. Our office building where I'm sitting at currently is right here in blue. Then we have our research building and research docks, our mesocosm facility. And then on Gibraltar Island, this is where everyone would stay, eat in their dining hall. We also have lab space in the classroom building, lab space in South Bass. So I envision activities could occur on Gibraltar and South Bass and out on the boats and the dorms here. So the schedule April, May would be registration. You could pick a working group or suggest another working group if you have a good idea and you think others might be interested in. Early summer, May, June, and July, we would like the working groups to meet remotely to come up with a working plan, develop a project plan, a hypothesis, and a method to test that. And then the actual workshop schedule, we're going to follow basically the schedule of Stone Lab's 1-week courses. We have courses that are 1 week, 4 week, and 6 weeks long. So we're gonna and also this workshop is going to the week of it, this first week of August is going to follow the last week of our college season. So we're just going to keep the schedule consistent. Monday, August 4th would be check-in between 1 and 3 p.m. We'd have an orientation at Stone Lab at 4 p.m. Dinners in our dining hall are always at 5 p.m. And then after dinner, we would meet for a logistics meeting with the working groups. Tuesday through Friday would be the research, so data collection. And depending on what your group is working on, the schedule would be different. But the Stone Lab, our meals are set at 7, noon, and 5, which again follows the college schedule. And then we also have transports between the two islands, so between South Bass and Gibraltar Island, after breakfast, before and after lunch, and dinner. And potentially we could arrange for an evening one, which should be doable. So that'd be the Tuesday through Friday schedule. And if you're off on the boat all day long, we can have bag lunches. Tuesday, we would propose, so Tuesday would be like, we do the cruise across the Western Basin to collect samples, set up experiments in the mesocosm, or set up incubation experiments off our docks. And then Wednesday through Friday would be continued research. Saturday morning would be brief group presentation. So, let's quickly put generic PowerPoint together to tell everybody what you did, or why you did what you did, hypothesis, methods, and if you have any results, if you're collecting chlorophyll data or nutrient data, which we can generate really quickly, do you have any preliminary results? And then we would check out at noon or after lunch. And the schedule is based upon, I set a survey out last fall asking how long should this be, and most of the respondents suggested, like this 5 or 6 day format. So more about Stone Lab. We have 2 main research vessels. We have the Erie Monitor, which is a small fast boat for light gear, calm water, small crew. It's fast, up to 35 miles an hour in calm weather. And then we have the larger Gibraltar 3, which is a heavy trawler boat, can handle heavy gear. You can see the A-frame back here. Rough water, larger group of people, and it's slower. It's about 13 mile an hour. Doing the transect to Maumee Bay, or if we do one into Sandusky Bay, depending on the number of people that want to go on the transect and the weather, we could take either boat. We had many groups that use the Gibraltar 3 to go into Maumee Bay and back for the day. It's just a long day on the boat. Some gear on our research vessels, trawl nets, plankton nets, sondes, various water samples, Ekman dredges. We have basically an unlimited supply of carboys and bottles that we can use. And you can also bring your own gear if you have special radiometer or anything like that. Our laboratory building on Lake Erie. We've had research groups come up to do incubation experiments. So this here, you can see this group here adding lake water to these bottles, and then these bottles can be incubated in Lake Erie, so they receive ambient light and ambient temperature. Inside the labs at Stone Lab, I know some of you on this call have been here, but we can arrange this wet lab in any way we want. Flex lab space. This is our little bit newer space. We have incubators here and fume hoods. Lab space on Gibraltar is more, it's less scientific instrument wise, but we have lots of bench space on Gibraltar Island that we can use. And here's one of our lab/classroom buildings with a group using it. And also, we have docks that can be used for deployments. So lab space, we have lots of lab space. We have 3 temperature and light controlled incubators all on South Bass. We have a walk-in temperature controlled incubator, fume hoods, fish tanks, flow through systems, DI water, freezers, microscopes, fluoroprobe ventral torch, flow cam, which we can use, but it would be my staff using it, and then analytical service. We could do nutrients for all the samples needed for that week. Our mesocosm facility, this is a newer facility. We have 15 600-gallon tanks. The intake for these is in Lake Erie, so we can pull in Lake Erie water. We can filter the water down to 1 micron if we want, or we can bypass the filters entirely to get the natural assemblages of plankton. When I use the mesocosms, I bypass the filters. When fish people use the mesocosms, they want the water filtered out. So some past projects that happened in our mesocosms, we looked at the effective turbidity on smallmouth bass, effectiveness of various algicides and their impact on non-target organisms, and a study looking at algae growth across containers of various scales. So the cost of this, that survey that I sent out back in the fall, I asked the question, what would be a reasonable cost for a student to attend 1 week at Stone Lab? 50% of the respondents said $500 to $750. 42 said between $350 to $500, and 8 said less than $300. So if we settle on $500 per person, this would be paid at registration. That seems like a reasonable that 90% of the people would agree to. And this would cover linens, beds, so in our dorm room, meals for the week, and then a few other charges. And then the shared cost, so boat time and mesocosm use and lab support, other costs, this would be paid by Ohio Sea Grant. And then there would be some additional costs on your own. For example, cost to get to the island via the Miller Ferry. The Miller Ferry is $9 per person per way. If you want to bring a vehicle, for example, if you're bringing instruments over, I think it's 23 or $25 per way. So you would have to pay that your own. There is free parking at the Miller Ferry, so we recommend if you're at least walking onto the ferry, take the Miller Ferry. And then if you want to go downtown in the evenings, if you have some downtime, there is a water taxi that will take us from Gibraltar Island to the boardwalk, which is $5 per person, one way and cash only. So that's the costs. We are visioning, I'm hoping to get about 20-ish students. Okay, 20-ish is my goal. And then 4 to 6 faculty members, which would be the same price. The students would stay in the dorm. The faculty would stay in our Stone Cottage facility, which has a separate, which is single beds and single bath. Whereas our dorms can hold up to 4 people, but it's a dorm, and our dorms are not air conditioned, but our college students live in it. So with that, that's all I had. I'm going to stop share, and if I figure out how to do that, stop share, then happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I think to answer questions, you can unmute yourself, or you can just type them in the chat. Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay. So after hearing this, is this something that you all would still be interested in?
Hi, Dr. Chaffin.
Hey,
Hi, thank you for the talk. Actually, the Michaela and I, we both be interested in, so we need to talk with Sylvia Newell, our
okay,
professor. Um, we'll definitely consider this, but we need to see our funding options at the university.
right. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, since I'm hearing none, the next steps would be communications via the Learn coordinator via email. I think I'm going to do another follow-up survey that's just more targeted. Do you want to attend this? Yes or no? Because I said we want to have 20-ish people to make it worth Stone Labs while to do it. But I know there was the earlier survey, there was at least that many that were interested. So I'm gonna send out a more pointed survey, trying to get numbers, and then from there will be a link for registration. Okay. Well, with that, if there's no further questions, I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar, and thank you all for attending. All right. Thank you all.